It is Wednesday, May 7th, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk about and do a lot of tapping for creating and establishing boundaries in our life. Welcome to Wednesdays with Gene. I am the eponymous Gene Montrastelli. These tappings that we do every single Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're joining us live, I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this after the fact, thanks for tuning in. These are presented by the Tapping Mastery Academy, year-long program that I run to help you get more out of every single round of tapping that you do. As always, to start off, what we're going to do is we're going to spend a few moments just doing a little wordless tapping. We're going to start off with 90 seconds of that. Tap on the side of your hand, take a nice big deep breath. And for the next 90 seconds, all we're going to do is we're just going to move from tapping point to tapping point. As we do that, just tune in and notice what is going on. And just let your fingers do the walking. And if your fingers get stuck somewhere where you just stay on a single point, just stay there. That's okay. And if anything comes bubbling up, an insight or something you need to jot down, make sure you write that down. And just stay present to where we are. And a nice big stretch. Shake it off. If any ideas came up inside of that, jot those down. If any insights, if any things that showed up inside of your head, one of the things that I do is I like to track every single one of my tapping sessions. If you go to tappingtracker.com, you can download my free tapping tracker. There's a 30-day, there's a 90-day, there's PDF, there's a Word version, so you can type right into it. It's a great way to capture those ideas as they are coming up and as we work our way through it. Now, today what we're going to do, like I said, is we're going to talk about and we're going to do a lot of tapping around creating boundaries and feeling safe doing that. Just a couple quick announcements before we do that. For those of you in the Tapping Mastery Academy, we got practitioner office hours tomorrow. This Sunday, I'm teaching a class on tapping and muscle testing. If you'd like to join us for that, we'll talk about how you can do that before we are done. And next week, what we're going to do when we regather here is we're going to do lots of tapping for feeling like we are unlovable. And it's important for us to recognize those things. So, when it comes to creating boundaries, boundaries is something for those of us who are natural helpers can feel really, really hard for us to do. And it can be hard for lots and lots of reasons. Most especially because we are used to having people come to us and being helpful in that particular regard. And for those of us who are natural helpers, part of our identity comes from being helpful, showing up, taking care of the people around us. And so not only are we in a situation where if we start to create boundaries, it feels like we are putting ourselves in a position where we are pushing away the people in need. And there's a part of us that feels like we are in some small way rejecting and letting go of who we see ourselves as a helper, as a person in the world, that it's really easy. You know, I do this, as someone who is a practitioner and does this regularly, I get some of my value. I get some of my sense of work by the difference I make in the world. And so, if we're in a situation where we feel like it is not safe for us to do that, it becomes really, really difficult. One of the really interesting ideas that I got in the last 6 months, someone presented it, and I wish I remembered the exact person to quote because I would quote them. And they basically said, boundaries are not walls. Instead, boundaries are bridges that take us to the places that we want to go. Boundaries are the bridges that connect us to the things that are important for us in our life. So a boundary is not about holding something back. A boundary is about creating a path to the thing that is useful and helpful for us. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a nice big deep breath for me. And I just want you to think about creating some boundaries in your life. And even creating those bridges, it means we're setting some stuff aside inside of that. And so what I want you to do, take a nice big deep breath. And I want you to say this out loud, and I want you to complete this sentence. It is not safe for me to create boundaries because. And just let that settle in. And if anything pops up, drop it into the chat box so that we can tap along to it, because we're going to do a lot of tapping here today about boundaries. Nice, easy breath. It is not safe for me to create boundaries because. And now we can add to that. I am not allowed to create boundaries because. Again, say that out loud. Just be present to it and pay attention to what comes up. Something comes up, jot it down, because if we don't respond to it, you can do a little tapping on your own. But what is it there inside of that? And you can even tap on the side of the hand as you tune into those questions. And you might even tune into a specific boundary. Maybe it's a boundary in a relationship. Maybe it's a boundary at work. Maybe it's a boundary that you create for yourself. And again, it is not safe, and just tap on the side of your hand as you focus on this. It is not safe for me to create boundaries because. I am not allowed to create boundaries because. Now, when I was doing this morning, doing a little tapping on this, getting ready for us to spend some time together here today, I came up with 3 not safe, not allows for me. And then I have one other thing that I want to do to reinforce that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 4 rounds of tapping right now. And we're going to work through these ideas each way. So again, what I want you to do is I want you to tune into a boundary that you would like to create that feels really hard for you to do that. And just notice that. And as you imagine creating the boundary, I want you to pay really close attention to what you're feeling in your body. Tightness in the chest, getting small, being uncomfortable, wanting to flee, being scared. Whatever that is, just tune into that. Nice, easy breath. And just move from tapping point to tapping point, repeating after me. Round 1 is around letting other people down. I recognize the fact the people in my life have expectations of me. People in my life see me in a very specific way. And if I decide to create a new boundary, I am going to be showing up in the world in a new and different way. Which means I'm going to be showing up differently. And there is a part of me that is afraid that if I start acting in new ways, people are going to respond to me differently. And I'm going to be letting them down. Because being let down simply means we are not living up to expectations. And when I start acting in a new way, it is possible that the people in my life are going to be disappointed with me. And I'm going to let them down. I recognize the fact that I am not responsible for other people's expectations of me or other people's emotional responses when I start showing up in a new way. I give myself permission to know it is safe for me to show up in new ways in my relationships as I create new and healthy boundaries for me. Nice deep breath. Big stretch. Shake it off. What'd you notice as you tapped on that? What were some phrases that resonated with you or some tail enders that showed up inside of that? Again, jot those things down. And if you want to drop them into the chat box so we can add them into our future tapping, or we can do some tapping for them today, that would be really, really great as well. But it makes sense that, I don't want to let other people down. I want to be a person who's living up to expectations. And so when I have that resistance, it makes sense. So resistance number 2, after we have let people down, there's a part of us that's afraid that they're going to start pushing back. So not only are we dealing with their emotional response, the next level is their reaction to what is going on. So tap on the side of the hand, take a nice big deep breath. I recognize the fact that if I start to create boundaries and I change the way that I show up in the world, not only are people going to be disappointed, they're actually going to start pushing back. Not only are they going to be disappointed, they're going to question me. They're going to question me to my face. They're going to question me to others. They might even throw a giant temper tantrum. because their needs are no longer being met. I give myself permission to know, even as someone who is a helper, even as someone who is a healer, it does not mean I do not have agency and control. Even when people push back, I'm allowed to change. Even when people push back, I am allowed to transform. Even when people push back, I am allowed to create boundaries, to keep myself safe, and to keep myself healthy. Nice big deep breath. And again, after that tapping, just put your hands on your chest, on your heart. Take a nice easy breath. And what do you notice? I want you to tune in, and I want you to notice the places where there is freedom and expansion, and just tune those up and just be present to those. And if there's still tension, if there's still resistance, tune into that. Note it down. And just be present to what is there. Again, if there's something that you need to hear again, make sure you jot that down so you can tap on it later. There's a tail ender that's in there. Make sure you jot it down so you can keep tapping on that. You know, the reason why we spend time tapping on this sense of creating boundaries and bridges to what is useful is because no one else is going to be a gatekeeper of our time and attention. We're the only one who has that as our job. And so it's super, super important that we tune in and we think about it in that particular way. So, round 3 of resistance that comes up to creating boundaries and tapping. Again, as I was tuning into this morning and I was saying, it's not safe for me to do this because, like I mentioned at the beginning, part of my place in the world is being a helper and a healer and a transformer and a guide and an encourager and all of those things where I'm giving and giving and giving to others. Like, it's a really clear part of my identity. And so when we start to create boundaries, it's really easy to feel as if we are hiding who we are. We're denying who we are. So let's tap on that. Nice big deep breath. And just move from point to point. I recognize the fact that I want to make a difference in the world. I recognize the fact that I want to help to create change. That I want the world to be a better place. That I want the people in my lives to have better lives. And so therefore, it feels scary to create a boundary. Therefore, it feels overwhelming to create a boundary. I give myself permission to know that creating boundaries is not denying who I am. Creating boundaries is not hiding my giftedness. It is not denying my nature. It is not turning down the help I could provide in the world. Creating boundaries is actually about protecting me. Because when I protect myself, I protect my giftedness. Creating boundaries actually makes it easier for me to be an agent of change in the world. Creating boundaries makes it easier for me to use my giftedness. I recognize the fact creating boundaries is not denying my nature. Creating boundaries is not rejecting who I am. Creating boundaries is not eliminating the place I find joy and value in the world. I give myself permission to know it is safe and I am allowed to create boundaries. Again, nice big deep breath. Scan your system, notice in your body. Again, tune into that sense of creating boundaries. And again, notice the expansion that comes from the tapping. Highlight that expansion. Lean into that expansion. Appreciate that expansion. At the exact same time, tune in and notice the resistance that's there. What are the tail enders that are still present? Jot some of those down. We don't want to lose those. Just after that little tapping, I just already feel more grounded, more expansive. And for those of you who are jumping in late, hi John, hi Jean Marie, don't worry about it. When we're done, the replay will be there. You'll be able to go back and be able to tap on the whole thing again, even if you're not tapping with us live in this moment. That's okay. Awesomeness. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the last round of tapping when it comes to this sort of stuff. And the first thing that we tune into is we tune into that resistance and that fear and why it's not safe and it's not allowed for us to create the boundary. The other part of it is giving ourselves permission to recognize that not only are we allowed to create the boundary, we are actually worthy and deserving of creating those boundaries. You know, it's not that I'm just doing something to hold the world at bay, but instead I've been made for that. And what I mean by I've been made for boundaries, again, boundaries are bridges to the things that are most useful. You know, there's a bridge from Williamsburg into Manhattan. It makes it useful for me to get into the city. It makes it easy to get over the thing that is in the way, that dirty, mucky water that is the East River. And not only am I allowed to use those in my life, I'm made for those because I want to make sure I'm managing my gifts and my talents in the way that make the dose different. So tap on the side of the hand, nice big deep breath. I just move from point to point. There is a part of me that is afraid that if I create boundaries, I am doing something wrong. There is a part of me that is afraid that if I create boundaries, it will cause issues. But I recognize the fact Not only am I allowed to create a boundary, I am worthy of creating boundaries in my life. Because boundaries protect my attention. Boundaries protect my energy. Boundaries protect my giftedness. Boundaries amplify my impact. I give myself permission to be gentle with myself. I give myself permission to be present to myself. I am worthy of protecting my giftedness. I deserve to protect my time. Because when I protect my time and attention with clear boundaries, it refines, it focuses, and it amplifies my giftedness. Creating boundaries are not about holding things out. They're about lifting up and focusing on what is valuable. And I am so worthy of doing that. I so deserve to do that. Creating boundaries does not deny my nature, does not hurt others. Instead, it amplifies what I am allowed to do and who I am called to be. Nice big deep breath. And again, just tune into the expansion. Maybe there's a tail ender or two, write those down as well. But just feel how much easier it is for you to be natural in your body and to be yourself. And as you tune into this, I just want you to complete this sentence for me. And after you complete the sentence, I want you to write this down and I want you to put it someplace where you can see it all day today. And so the phrase is, on a soul level, creating boundaries gives me, and just complete that sentence. Or if it's more comfortable for you, on a heart level, creating boundaries is good for me because. And as you tune into that, again, just write it down. And just say the phrase out loud after you write it. Maybe even tap on your collarbone as you say it out loud. And now what I want you to do is I want you to think of the rest of your day. You're watching this live, you're watching it after the fact. As we watch this live, it is 11:29 Eastern time, whenever you're watching it later. I want you to think about later in today, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours from now. I want you to look at your calendar, look at your diary, and I want you to pick a spot in your day later today where you're going to have a few minutes and it's interruptible for you. And then what I want you to do is I want you to set an alarm. Set it on your watch, set it on your phone, set it on your computer for 3, 4, 5 hours from now when you have some space. And when that alarm goes off, what I want you to do is I want you to take the phrase that you just wrote down about your worthiness, about your deservingness, about what these boundaries give you. And what I want you to do is I want you to say that out loud, and I want you to do 1 round of tapping. Like Lacey just put in the chat box, it allows me to be my better self. And so what it'll look like 3 or 4 hours from now is I give myself permission to create boundaries because it allows me to be my better self. I give myself permission to create boundaries because it allows me to be my better self. I give myself permission to create boundaries because it allows me to be my better self. I give myself permission to create boundaries because it allows me to be my better self. It's just that simple. And maybe you might have 2 or 3 phrases, work your way through them, but just do that. Give your future self a gift. Go to your watch, go to your phone right now, set a timer, and just think, future me, future Gene, future whoever you are. I'm going to give you the gift of pausing this afternoon and spending a few moments tapping and tuning back into my boundaries in that way. So those are 4 really, really simple rounds of tapping that you can do on this. Again, this lives on YouTube forever, so go back, tap along this again, and be into it. I love that, Becky. Creating boundaries allows me to become my most authentic self. Absolutely. That's something that's good for us to recognize and tune into. Awesome. So just a couple quick reminders before we scoot on. Tapping Podcast still exists. Episode 660 went up last week. Every single Wednesday, new content shows up there as well. Just go to tappingpodcast.com to see the entire archive. If you would like to join us this weekend for the Art of Delivery on muscle testing and how you add that to tapping, all you need to do is go to tappingqna.com/TMA for the Tapping Mastery Academy. We do office hours. We answer all sorts of questions. We tap with you. We teach you new stuff every single month. I would love, love, love if you joined us over there. As a reminder, we are going to be back here again next week. We are here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can join us live. You can join us after the fact. Please bring a friend along with you next week. Think of one person in your life who might enjoy one of these little tap-alongs with a community in a circumstance like this. We're all together. And so as we're doing this, knowing that other people are tapping with you all over the world, we have a really lovely global tapping community. For those of you who are showing up live, for those of you watching after the fact, thank you very much. You get questions about anything, something you'd like to see us to cover in the future on one of these live streams, support at tappingqna.com. I'd love to hear from you if you are watching this after the fact. On the screen right now, you can see a playlist that will lead you to every single one of the past episodes. This is episode 21 of these. Every single Wednesday this year, we're going to be here. I hope you have a great day. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye-bye.